I'm happy that they lose their jobs. I'm happy that they're being called out. I'm happy that uh, we are now at a point, at a turning point, right, where people have, feel confident to be able to put those kinds of people in their place.
Them losing their jobs over speech? Isn't that like violating freedom of speech, like cancel culture type shit?
Again, as a constitutional conservative, I believe you should be able to say basically any damn thing. But unfortunately, nobody listened to me when that was happening, and all of these hate speech laws went into effect. And now you kind of reap what you sow in this regard.
I think that everyone generally agrees that we don't know what this person's motivations were definitively. I think that the issue, yes, I think that the issue that people are taking right now on the panel is that people like large figures such as Matt Walsh and other figures, it sounds like primarily on the right, immediately began to attribute his actions, regardless of the public knowledge, to the contrary or thereof, to the Democrats and to the left, and then try to use that as justification for inciting political violence against the left. And so the question is that okay? Is that justified? Is that, what moral weight do we ascribe to that and similar actions? And also, has the left engaged in any similar activity as of late? I think that that's where the panel that's where the question sounds like it's at.
I'm completely okay with anyone that has, not, I don't know what the right way to say this. Anybody that has, been showing celebration or any kind of crazy, like, attitudes like that with regard to Charlie Kirk, I'm happy that they lose their jobs. I'm happy that they're being called out. I'm happy that we are now at a turning point, right, where people have, feel confident to be able to put those kinds of people in their place, because I have been in and around this space for the last, 4 or 5 years, right? And during that time, I've seen people, not report themselves as professionals. That'd probably be the best way to say it, right? So, it's I'm very happy to see that we're at a point where this shit's getting called out, and to the nth degree, because I said it years ago. I said you are not going to like it whenever this pendulum starts swinging back the other direction. And as far as I'm concerned, it needs to keep swinging a little bit more, because we're still a little bit way too liberal with our thinking, and we need to get back to more conservative and traditional type thinking for our nation's sake.
To a question, you said you're happy that people were losing their jobs over things they said about Charlie Kirk.
Absolutely.
May I ask, what specifically they were saying that you were happy to when they lose their jobs over?
Any type of, showing like they're happy that happened. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's people who have being happy over a death is wrong, but them losing their jobs over speech, isn't that like violating freedom of speech, like cancel culture type shit?
Yeah, you're literally like, your association right now to freedom is not one of responsibility, and I suggest that you start getting that. Otherwise, you're not ever going to be able to understand my line of thinking.
So, I don't think it's free speech. I think it's hate speech at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hate speech, and you guys worked really hard. The left
violates free speech, though.
The left
doesn't. I mean, would you guys support, like, just broadly speaking, and I'm just checking in, would you guys support like workplaces taking similar stances against the murders, people making statements about the murders of Melissa Hortman?
So in my area, it's made the news. I'm sure it's national by now. The assistant dean at the college near me that I actually went to 30 odd years ago has been fired for her social media post day of, where she basically said Kirk got what he deserved, and he, kind of the same FAFO mantra and some other kind of actually, not very good, not very pleasant, and certainly not very professional things. And she was fired from her job like the next day as the assistant dean. the university. And to be honest, I don't have a problem with it, because for so long, so many in this country have been using hate speech laws to get people fired, to get them, banned from specific areas and kicked off of Twitter and whatever, but for whatever speech. And you guys were certainly very happy about that. Not you guys specifically. I'm not pointing any, I'm not saying anyone in this room. I'm saying, mostly on the left. We're perfectly happy about that, but now it seems like that it's going the other direction, and everyone's very unhappy about it. Now, I personally don't care one way or the other. I think that as a constitutional conservative, I believe you should be able to say basically any damn thing. But unfortunately, nobody listened to me when that was happening, and all of these hate speech laws went into effect. And now you kind of reap what you sow in this regard. Now, as far as people turning that into action, right? Like I've heard from a bunch of different sources, that this is, for example, I'm in a very unique cross section of spaces, and in one of them, they're very much of the opinion that, this could be the banner for the next Civil War. And I've heard that. I've actually literally seen that written out, and by very dangerous people, by the way. They're not people to be taken lightly. And it's somewhat troubling to me, because to me, like and look, I'm certainly not belittling anyone, but when the left talks about acting out, I picture riots and a little bit of looting and, some annoyance, right? But when the right starts talking about acting out, it changes things entirely. And it bothers me a little bit, to be honest, even on the right. However, I don't think that I think it's talk at this point. It still bothers me. I just want it noted that, there were no riots. There's nobody, throwing bottles at people. There's nobody looting, storming shopping malls or any of that nonsense. It's just a bunch of people who are really, really sad, and some people that are really, really angry about Charlie's death. I think I've talked long enough. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me ask this.
Really quick. Could I just ask a follow-up question?
Oh yeah, Clara, go ahead.
So just to clarify, your position was that you, broadly speaking, just support free speech in general. You can say what you want on Twitter. Who gives a shit? You shouldn't get fired. But you appreciate the schadenfreude of people getting fired post Charlie Kirk's assassination. Is that correct?
I find it ironic.
Oh, okay. Cool. Great. And then Uncle Cowboy, would you support people getting fired for talking shit on the lawmaker from Minnesota who got murdered back in June? On a similar basis to people getting fired for talking shit about Charlie Kirk or celebrating his death?
I think that was directed at CTV.
CTV, thank you.
Oh, Uncle K.
It took me a second.
Yeah, it's not a bad one, right? Yeah, I mean, in general, I don't like people calling for violence. I don't like it when people are celebrating, untimely deaths or stuff like that. I'm not that guy, right? I'm the one that as soon as you do it, I'm going to be, if I'm in your friend group, I'm going to be the one looking at you like, what the fuck? Like, really? I'm going to be also one that would be voting towards, people that are opposites that would put laws into place that would stop you from doing what I, think is just, unrespectful behavior. It's like, what the fuck, So it's like, on the one hand, you have the right to be able to kneel for the anthem, but, on the other, you don't go to jail for it. In this instance, we're not talking about something like that. We're talking about showing actual celebration for someone else being murdered. That's not cool. And I'm happy that these people are reaping the consequences of the speech that they were so freely allowed to fucking put out there for me to have to listen to.
Right, and you would
Oh.
support Democrats doing the same thing in their situation.
Already happened. What the fuck are you talking about? We already endured all this. Stop with this
Well,
smug
No,
fucking like
but
blah blah blah.
I
I'm
don't
not the
care what you
fucking one.
endured. I'm asking if you think that those rights, ought to be shared. Like if you're just, I can tell that you're upset about it.
I'm not upset. This is how I talk. Motherfuckers been watching me for years.
Cool.
I'm nowhere near upset. Nowhere
Actually,
near. But
Steve,
what I will do.
Your dog was really okay with it earlier. He's super cute. So.
Y'all have gone back and
Steve,
forth on
nope.
this for a second.
Steve.
Lucy, you had your
I
hand
wanna
raised.
see
Did you want to make a
your-
point?
I feel like we're going a bit off topic, but I've seen people discuss hate speech laws and people getting fired for their hate speech. But I guess I'm deferring to the legal expert here because I'm not really American. But as far as I understand, there's not really hate speech laws per se in the U.S.
It's
So
as,
what's yeah?
as far as I'm aware, it's
What?
more an issue that people can be fired from their jobs if most jobs are at work or at will employees, and they can be fired for a range of things, including usually their political beliefs within a certain range.
Because I know that a hate crime is different from a hate speech law.
As
No.
long
Yeah.
as you're not directly threatening anybody's life, you can say pretty much whatever you want in America.
Can I?
So why are we discussing
this-
hate speech laws if they're not a thing in the U.S.?
We
Because
weren't
it matters,
discussing the
because
laws.
You're not
you're-
talking about laws. You're talking about.
We were
It
discussing the
matters because
results.
if you're in the street and you're telling somebody, hey, I would like to shoot you, and if I had my gun, I would shoot you. The police is next to you, they will arrest you. It is something that is like you can be arrested for. And if you're in a job and they see you post stuff online, they have all rights to fire you because not only is not with their policies, it's also the right to just like not have
You
that. as
cannot
your-
really threaten somebody who's already dead, can you?
Well,
Wait,
so
what?
this
All right, hold on.
Okay,
Pause.
whoa.
So let me ask. So actually, let me just as a point of clarification, let me ask the unreasonable man. So unreasonable man, my understanding, I generally agree that I don't believe that there are a ton of specifically hate speech laws because those usually get wrapped up in First Amendment challenges. Usually, the reason why people are able to get fired from their jobs is because they're at-will employees, and then employers usually, because there are not affirmative laws to the contrary, they can be able to fire people for a range of reasons, including for their political beliefs or what they post online. Is that the case, or is there something
yeah,
else? I'm
well,
not
it's also
aware of?
I believe the reason I think that both of the public agencies gave is because it opens them up to civil lawsuits for civil rights violations. When you were talking about that, you were glad someone is dead, and you're an employee of a public something like a
Really?
There's a lady being that's on leave, administrative leave right now in Nashville for some very sick things that she said, and then this obviously the State University assistant dean was fired. Now that could also come. It may not be in law, but it could just be in their contract that they can't say anything to. Kind of embarrass the university or something like that. I don't know with the university how that works, but I'm pretty sure that what they're going through in Nashville with the lady, ambulance or 911 dispatcher is that it's going to be. I think they're looking at it from some sort of civil rights violation sort of thing.
Gotcha.
What do we think
I need to
about
look into that.
people who-
Yeah.
I would.
What do you
I
think about
haven't
people who were-
seen why she's like. The news has just said that she's being on administrative leave because they're reviewing the case, right?
Okay.
So
Lenderbox, go ahead.
What do we think about people who were like making light of it? So if maybe someone who is in a university or some crazy like lefty says something like, "Oh, it's ironic that he was like pro-gun and he thought it was worth a few deaths every year, then he gets shot by." Would you think people like that should be fired? People who say that?
It's rude, but no.
It's not
It's really
related.
the same.
though.
Obviously, I'm asking the conservative guys, right?
oh yeah. I mean, I think it's tasteless, but it didn't bother me when people said that.
Yeah, I was actually wondering the same thing because I've seen a couple of people, or actually a lot of people online, who have basically argued like, on one hand, it is bad and horrible what happened to him.
Mhm.
Political violence categorically is not justified. The act is condemned. And then say on the other hand, he himself has gone on the record to say empathy is, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said like empathy is horrible and we shouldn't do it. Some amount of gun deaths are justified to protect the Second Amendment. you know, like people have essentially said like I don't condemn Charlie Kirk's death, but he himself would condemn Charlie Kirk's death. So I mean, I guess I'm curious about like, along what Lunderbox was asking about your perspective.
Sorry, I spoke over you again. I apologize.
You're all good. Go ahead.
So what Charlie himself said, and you can find this, it's probably on TikTok right now, or wherever. I actually don't know where he uploaded shit to. What he actually said is somebody actually asked him, and it's like a month ago, what would happen, you know, if because you do these events, you're putting yourself out there, you're putting yourself in danger, and you know that people don't like you. You said, I've had a great life. I will go to my God. And he had a whole line, and I'm not going to try and repeat what he said, but it was exceedingly rational and positive. That, you know, he can't live in fear, and you know, if the Lord calls him home, he's fine. Don't. And so on my show the other night, I covered this, and I said that, you know, I don't feel bad for Charlie. Charlie was a very successful man. He's going to his God. I feel. You know, if anything, I feel at peace that Charlie is gone to meet God. But the real problem is his family. He's left behind a wife and 2 young children, and that's horrible and really bad. And I think so. And just to kind of circle this back, because before we get too far afield, saying that, well, you know, you live by the gun, you die by the gun, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me if you say, well, he fucked around and found out, or, you know, he probably should have kept his mouth shut, or any of these other really bad, you know, and I'm not going to get into the horrible things because it'll upset me and I will get angry and then I'll be rude, and I don't want to be. But what really bothers me is there's a huge difference between saying he lived by the gun, he died by the gun, and saying, you know, that he got what he deserved, or he fucked around and found out, or, you know, ha ha ha, so happy Charlie Kirk is dead for the stupid fascist, whatever. If you can't discern a difference in that, I think that you have you're insane, and you really, really need to get some personal help.
Well, I think that to kind of address what was being asked a minute ago, right? It seemed like we were talking about accountability between the internet and the real world. So it seems like regardless of what anybody else thinks, right? Legislatures are putting different controls in place. So we are heading towards a place where, you know, you are going to have to be accountable to the things that you say online, you know, versus, because like the whole idea that most people, whenever they're spouting off all this other shit, at least what I'm scrolling through is it's like, you know, crazy name bot accounts that are not actually tied to people that are saying some of the most outlandish shit. So I just end up like blocking those or whatever, because, you know, I only want to like know what real people think. You know, that's where we're heading towards. So if you're out there and you're saying some really outlandish and dumb shit on your like actual account, well, or if you said that in a room full of people, would you expect to get smacked? If the answer is yeah, well, then there's like going to be a way to go from online to real world where you get smacked. You know,
that's why I was asking you. Obviously, so saying something like, "Oh yeah, he deserved it," or "I'm glad he did it," but there's a difference between that, because that one sounds like they're kind of saying they want more of it to happen. Whereas I was asking you, would you want people to get fired if they were like joking about it or making light about it? Like, is that or gloating? Is that kind of thing the same to you? Do you think they should get fired as well? That's what I'm asking you, CTV.
Yeah, the man wasn't even in the ground yet. Yeah, there's everybody
so
has, you know, like there, absolutely. There's because I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, and if you haven't learned what the time and a place, and, you know, fucking holding your tongue for a bit, because there's obviously, it doesn't matter what the situation is, because comedians have been doing it for thousands of years, an ability to be able to make fun of anything or get to a place where people can laugh about a thing, right? So the whole fucking point is time and a place, and if you don't know time and a place, then you're going to get taught time and a place by society. That's just how it works.
Okay, so so would you say the same for someone joking about the Pelosi's getting attacked in their house?
Sure, there shouldn't be anybody attacking Nancy Pelosi in her house. I mean, Lord knows that woman's probably stumbling through it drunk as it is.
Okay, do you understand the difference with the reference that I made was to a elected politician who was making jokes about Pelosi getting attacked in her house, Carrie Lake? Do you see how
So
when we
Donald
talk
Trump
about people
out-
getting fired, so apparently you think Carrie Lake should have got fired for that?
I already made my stance clear that there should be a certain amount of
Yeah.
accountability
I
if
think
you're
his
calling
question
violence.
I'm just saying then,
should
yeah,
there
because
be
it's
a
interesting
line?
that the examples that you have
Look, man,
are
like,
from people like who are
I
teachers
made my
or like people at
stance.
universities,
I-
but then for the Republican side, it's people who are elected officials doing this shit.
Well,
So I made my stance clear, right? So if you want to, like, fucking whatever it is you want to do with it, Lonerbox, right? But like, I made my
I
stance
don't think you
clear.
even know what I'm doing, but yeah.
Well, I
The
do.
argument was, should there be a line? And there is clearly a miss.
Well, it's
Uh,
damn sure not getting a pair of scissors on that hair. That's for sure.
Well, hold on. You can't. So wait a minute. How would you fire a politician?
Well, this
You
person was a
don't, they don't
nominee.
get
Yeah, I
reelected
mean,
in
that's
the
a really bad
office,
example,
or you go
right?
through a process where you
Like
take
Santos.
away their
That's a really bad example because the politicians get to say a lot of dumb shit and not get fired for
That's
it.
a
It's their,
really
kind of
good
their job.
example because they're super.
You don't think wait, maybe it's different in the United States, but can parties not drop candidates?
Well,
Party
yeah,
person was
she
a
would not
candidate.
get elected
They
again,
have
but when
to-
she's
to
in
accept
office,
the process.
there's only one way to remove her.
Okay, so do you think the Republican Party should have dropped this person for
They
joking
can't
about that?
drop
That's what I'm
her.
saying.
What are you talking?
Get money,
There's
Dre.
an
Sorry,
extensive
really quick.
process to remove
Yeah, it's on these
party
one.
from office.
Get money, Dre, then Ziz.
My turn. All right. So there's an extensive process to help remove someone from office. It takes a while. I don't know the exact intricacies of it, but like I think the most recent prominent examples what happened with George Santos and him getting removed from office. He was a congressman who was convicted of, I think, fraud
Mhm.
and sentenced to prison. I don't know like the entire details of it.
Mhm.
But no, like to answer your question, Motorbox, in America, it's a lot more difficult than, let's say, in Europe or Canada, I think, to remove a politician from office. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry. I'm not sure.
That's fine.
Does that answer your question, or do you?
I
Ziz,
know
you
I
also-
know we're never going to get really like any acknowledgement that these kind of jokes when it comes to Charlie Kirk seems to be coming from people who are not politicians, whereas it's Republican politicians who have made jokes about attacks on officials like Nancy Pelosi in the past. But like the double standard, like Republicans just
Yeah.
do this worse at a higher level than Democrats do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would disagree with
I'm not doing that, and any time that I've seen people doing that, it's been called out. It's not something that's prominent on the right from what I see. It's definitely something that's very prominent on the left. I've been seeing
Really?
it for years now. Lots of people have been seeing it for years, from
By the way, is
Maxine
the Trump
Waters.
syndrome-
All these
Maxine
people in the
All these
political
people,
scene
Maxine Waters.
voted into
All of them
office,
Maxine
calling
Waters.
into violence, telling people not to sit down in the same place and eat with them, and all. You got to get in their face and all this stuff. Like that's what's been happening, right? So the left needs
you
to
name one
start
example on the
controlling
left
their
that happened?
mouths, essentially.
Do you think that yelling at someone, or do you think that encouraging their constituents to, go protest their elected representatives, do you think that that is the same as saying like, oh my God, actually, I don't even know why I'm asking this, because you do think that they're the same. You do think that it's the same as like, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, after someone is assassinated, after everyone, like you guys have been saying, is like hurt and in pain and they're angry and probably fucking terrified, a lot of people. And Donald Trump immediately gets on, and instead of doing anything to try and like quell the temperature and bring things down and pull back on Matt Walsh's fucking leash and Benny Johnson's leash and all these motherfuckers. And instead, he immediately went off on how it's all the radical left's fault. Nothing about how we're all Americans and we need to come together. He can say it's a dark time. It is a dark time. It's fucked up. We just had a major political assassination, and everyone should be afraid of the implications of that, because the implications of that are that political assassinations are now on the fucking table in America, which they technically they have been for a little while. See previous political assassinations performed by, apolitical individuals, like we established, apolitical, but all of the people, you said, I don't support these crazy people, I don't support these crazy people. Like, they're all the product of this, like, deeply ingrained nihilism that is being, like, further expedited by, what are the top 5 of our S&P? Like, our entire economy right now is floating on these environments where you can go down a weird furry meme hole on Discord until you become so radicalized that you go and shoot Charlie Kirk or whatever this kid's into.
That is a problem. That is a problem.
It seems like a problem. It seems like a public health problem that we could all as Americans come together as opposed to being like, oh, the radical left. Oh, the radical left.
And one British person. Hi, Lonerbox.
To be clear, that's Trump's response to everything, right? It's really interesting when you compare his response to this thing right now. When even he was asked on an interview, he was asked about telling people to not seek acts of vengeance or justice or whatever, like in the streets. He said something. I think his response was something like, "Well, where are they going to get it from? The ballot box? Well, the ballot box is mail-in ballots, and they're very fraudulent." He completely he's never done this. Even when Melissa Hortman and her husband were killed, he just said, "Oh yeah, we condemn violence." He didn't say anything partisan about it, and he never has. Trump has never ever called out his own side, unless he will occasionally be like, "Oh yeah, violence is bad," but also the Antifa and the Democrats and BLM.
Is the next thing coming out of your mouth, Lonerbox, going to be trying to sell me on the very fine people hoax? Is that the next thing coming out of your mouth?
Do you think that's a hoax? What was actually said there? Can you remind me?
Hold on.
Actually, them stopping the recording and then not listening to the rest of what got said.
Yeah, he said fine people on both sides, but not the neo-Nazis, correct?
So I'm going to stop this line because there's a much more... Hold on, Ziz, before you go, because there's a much more relevant topic that I think is worth talking about. So, Claire, the quote that you brought up, I think actually Trump recently went on to an interview and said it was more than just, oh, I blame the left, the radical left. He also said, I don't really blame the radical right, because he said that the radical right is more concerned with stopping crime and such in the U.S. Like, he affirmatively recently went on defense of the radical right. So, I mean, like, Lonerbox, like, we don't need to go down this whole other conversation. Like, I feel like there's a much more recent topic or recent example that y'all can talk about.
Yeah, goddamn.
The history of trying to, what's the term? Rile up people who his supporters. He has a history of doing that.
No, they'd rather talk about fine people on both sides, even though
yeah,
one of the sides was a neo-Nazi side.
Okay.
Yeah, can we just talk about how that's that's a blatant support of violence? It's like putting two types of violence on a scale and saying, I favor this violence. As the fucking president of the United States of America, like that I feel like that position, I don't know, like that should mean something, right? Like, it should mean something. It should mean
Unreasonable
something.
Man and CTV. Let me ask you, because I mean, like, I could imagine, I wouldn't agree with this position, but I could imagine a reasonable defense of his statements being like, well, he said that the radical right is more focused on trying to reduce crime or trying to combat crime, and that's not the same as radical left. I don't buy that. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think? Because I, like, personally, taking myself out of the moderator role, that feels pretty divisive. Like, I feel like that's not something that was ever mimicked by someone like Biden, for example. But what are your thoughts?
All it feels to me is just it's bait. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like it's going to lead to any type of like informed discussion. That's what it feels like, right? Because if there was a radical right, like, white Christian nationalists trying to take over the country, fuck everybody else, they're going to load them up into concentration camps type thing, which is what the left tries to fucking sell, right?
That's what reality tries to sell, my guy.
I mean, the Heritage Foundation Project.
No. That's literally like your interpretation, and that's the other thing too.
Hate groups, they do exist. They're not like fucking fairy tale stories.
Let's see. Hold on, everyone. Pause. CT. Sorry, if you had a thought that you wanted to finish, go ahead.
Well, everything that people take in, right, is taken in through their own filter, whatever it is, right? So if in life you happen to be in survivor mode, you're going to see things a lot different than someone that is not in that type of mode. They're in into their business, they're into their family, they're into their church. There's different modes that people have been, and then when they're taking in information, all of it goes through the filter, right? So if they were raised with a certain bias, then they're going to take it in through that bias, right? The whole idea in life is to be able to understand that there's all of these different filters and biases and things that can affect the way in which you see something. And what you have to have is a core set of principles that you always come back to. Otherwise, all you are is just a fluid being, that is just, wishy-washy with the wind, right? You never actually stand for anything. So that's the you have to have the truth. There's one reality that we all live in. It's not subject to, varying degrees of internal interpretation by individuals, right? It's hard right in front of us every single day, and we're living it. That's how the whole thing feels.
There's a lot of irony baked into you saying wishy-washy there.
Yeah, holy
can I just throw out one statement that none of you guys are ever going to be able to rebut? In the month leading up to January 6th and on the day, Trump riled up more violence against Republicans, just Republicans, than any Democrat politician has in the last 20 years. Go.
Yeah, on the day of January
and the build-up, the month building up,
6th,
because
I
he
was
obviously
very
sent a fucking mob to people like Rusty
that
Bowers'
things
house and
unfolded the
shit.
way that they did. I was actually
Hold on.
actually streaming when it happened.
Hold on.
I was surprised that things ended up the way that it did.
Unreasonable man, go ahead.
So, all right, if we really want to relitigate January 6th, let's point out that January 6th was considerably less violent than a protest that happened in the Capitol not long before that, where they actually did burn down a building, and yet you never want to take responsibility for it. I really get sick of this nonsense blather from leftists, and I'm assuming you are a leftist.
They can't engage
now.
with it. They just can't engage with it. It's ridiculous.
No, you can't engage.
Trump,
you never engage with the fact that
Trump,
that
the president, not random people on Twitter, not random commentators. Trump, the president. Yes, the president.
When you have the weaker position, you have to do that.
Put Republicans in danger.
No,
more Republicans in danger than
every time. Just let him grind his gears.
Hold on. Unreasonable man, go ahead, and then Loner Box, you can respond.
Yeah. So when it's again, I get that he just wants to constantly do Jan 6 stuff. So here's the deal. If there was actually anything to January 6th, all of the people tried would have actually not been railroaded, and they were. The legal documents support that, and they're going through those as we speak. There's somebody that I actually know that was there that's going through litigation against the government right now, which is, and he's probably going to win. But it's really interesting that you want to keep relitigating this, but you just ignore everything. You ignore the feds. You ignore the masked people in black that just came out of nowhere all of a sudden that were armed. You ignore the video of people dropping guns. You ignore all of the facts, but you just want to key on specific talking points. And I'm sick of talking points. Just be honest, be genuine, right? Like the whole, like when Trump asked for more National Guard, more patrol people, National Guard, all of that, and it was denied. Why? Okay, sure, that's a thing, whatever. But if we really want to talk about, actual like violence, right? Well, first of all, I don't think this country has seen actual violence from the right in a few decades. You will know it when it happens because unfortunately, the right has far more violent people than the left. I will freely admit that. I know a lot of them. However, they are also the more controlled people, the more based people, and the more people that tend to live in reality, and not whatever this is.